very quiet, terrific season, but that's just me.
Going back to this Monday night game, the Giants have an abundance of pass rushers. Osi Umenyiora, Tuck, Pierre-Paul, Kiwanuka. Those guys really know how to get to the quarterback. Break down the Giants' defensive line going up against the Saints' offensive line.
Well, they do. They have a terrific pass rush, and that's one of the things, the Saints' offensive line has kind of been beat up this year. They lost Zach Street for a little while. They've had to put Brian De La Puente in there at center after Holding Cruz decided that he was going to retire, so they've kind of been mixing and matching a little bit. But it kind of seems to me like I think they kind of got their unit together right now. Look, they're not a terrific unit, but they communicate well and they play well as a five front. And I think if you cover football for long enough, if there's a unit that needs to communicate more so than anything else, it's got to be the offensive line. And I think that the group that they got right now, they communicate pretty well. So, having said that, I've also seen them go out there and give up all those sacks against the Rams. I mean, Chris Long is a terrific player. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But he had a career day against the Saints a couple weeks ago, against the Saints starting right tackle at that time. And things didn't work out. So I think what the Saints need to do, as opposed to worrying about those pass rushers, run the dang football at the Giants. And if you look at the yards per average for Chris Ivory, Mark Ingram, Pierre Thomas, Darren Sproles, I mean, when you run the football, you're doing a good job. And, I mean, those guys are averaging it's a culmination of everybody, but about 4.9 yards per carry. I'll take that any day in the NFL. But for some reason or other, the Saints have a tendency to want to get away from the run and go to the pass. So I'm not worried about pass rushers. I'm worried about who can stop the run for the Giants as opposed to rushing the passer.
Mark Ingram is one of those running backs. He was out 2 games, and then he came back last week. What's the health status of the former Heisman Trophy winner?
Well, since the Saints had their bye week, Sean Payton is so close to the vest on giving out injury information. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he doesn't have to give out any information until tomorrow. So we're not going to hear anything from him until tomorrow. But Chris Ivory had a slight hamstring pull in the game against the Falcons. He's probably the odd man out if they're going to sit somebody down. But again, all I'm doing is speculating, but we're not going to know anything until Sean Payton has to make an official announcement tomorrow.
We're talking to Hokie Gajan, former NFL running back with the New Orleans Saints, LSU running back as well. And Hokie, I think this is the first time I've ever asked this in my short radio career. What's the health status of the head coach, Sean Payton?
Yeah, that's pretty good. He said he'd probably be on crutches till about Christmas. That was the latest word that came out. I mean, it was a pretty serious injury they had, but he did get down on the sidelines for the Saints-Falcons game, and so he's had an extra week to recover from that. But he said that from here on out, he would, at least his plans are to be on the sideline, but he thought he'd be on crutches till about Christmas. So, we're looking at roughly, a little over another 3 weeks. But I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like you. It was kind of funny, the first press conference that he did after that injury. And look, I've been on crutches a bunch of times. I've had 7 knee surgeries. And, man, if you want to talk about a workout, you can get them on a pair of crutches. And he got up in front of the microphones, and the first person to ask him a question, he was like, well, let's see, status of today's players. And you can kind of hear him huffing and puffing. It's like, yeah, Coach, you see, it ain't that easy to come back from all these injuries. But no, to the best of my knowledge, he's doing fine.
You've had a lot of experience in this league, and Brandon Jacobs is at 1.8 yards per carry on the year for the New York Football Giants, and he's been opening his mouth to the media a bunch of times, calling out the Giants fan base, saying all they do is boo, and he also said, I go home to my $70,000 car each and every day. If you were one of Jacobs' teammates, would that be something that you would approach him on and say, it's kind of time that you should shut your mouth because you're looking like a fool?
Well, let me say this, Zach. Brandon Jacobs is a guy that's, he's from down here in South Louisiana. I mean, he was a stud player in high school, and went to Auburn, and really probably got drafted later than he should have been. But I think that was one of the things about it, that maybe his attitude had a little something to do with it. But he's really been a terrific player in the NFL. But you also come to a point in time in the NFL where your skills start to diminish, and I think that's where Brandon Jacobs is right now. It's and again, there's so many times that we're playing while the Giants are playing, so I don't get an opportunity to see the game. But the couple of opportunities that I have had to see Brandon Jacobs play this year, it's like he's not the same player, but he's getting up in age, and and I think that he needs to realize that you don't need to start calling out people, and you don't really need to call out yourself. It's just a matter of, you know what, my skills are going downhill. Father Time has a way of doing that to you, and at least in my opinion, I think that's what's going on with Brandon Jacobs right now. Now, you can either agree with me or disagree with me on that, but I think that's where he's at in his career, that he's just not that big bulldozer that he used to be.
I'll agree with you to some extent. He came into the league. He had that big year in 2007 when the Giants did the impossible, and they went and they defeated the New England Patriots, who were 18-0 at the time, and got them to 18-1. But I'm just looking at Jacobs. I just think it was a matter of one season. Teams knew what they were how they were going to stop him, and then once he started to stop bulldozing those people, it kind of looks to me that Brandon Jacobs is dancing. He's soft, going through the holes. I'm just not really in love with Brandon Jacobs right now, and I just think the way he's running his mouth, going on with Boomer and Carton here in WFAN in New York, it's just really hurting his image, and I really don't see how he's going to be on this football team next year.
Well, he was the guy that called out Plaxico Burress back when Burress was talking about maybe getting back in the league, and said, no, there's no way in the world that he'll be back with the Giants. And you know what? I mean, he was right. And how that ties into this whole thing is I'm not saying it's complicated. I'm just saying that, maybe he figured that Plaxico Burress had just kind of run his course with the Giants. And I think that Brandon Jacobs has run his course with the Giants as well. And it's it's a terrible thing to do as a player, to look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what, my days are done. And I think that's why I salute the guys that retire in this league when they go out on top and say, you know what, there's no reason to go out there and embarrass myself anymore, because there's always somebody younger, faster, stronger, quicker, and can do better things than I can. And to walk away from it's a difficult thing to do. But I personally think that is the case right now with Brandon Jacobs. And again, I don't get to watch them every Sunday. I just get to watch them whenever the Saints are not playing. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
We're talking to Hokie Gajan of WWL for the Saints. He's the color analyst each and every Sunday, and you can catch him this week actually on Monday Night Football, big primetime game. And Hokie, two more questions right before we let you go. Eli Manning, he has just been the real downfall here for the New York Football Giants when he throws turnovers. He looked so great in the beginning of the season, and now it looks like he's going back to the Eli form of last year. How do you see the Saints attacking Eli this week and try to make him throw one that goes the other way?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I think it'll be it's going to kind of be the other way around. I think that Tom Coughlin is going to go back to, you know what, this is what we do. We play good defense, we run the football, and we throw play-action passes. I mean, to me, Eli is not in the class with Peyton. Peyton is, and I'm, of course, referring to Peyton Manning. Peyton is the kind of guy that, he wants 4, 5, 6 receivers, a bunch of people going out in the route, and anything else. I think Eli wants to rely on that running game, do the play-action stuff, hit the tight end, hit a receiver on a quick out, quick in, something like that. And I think it's more so that they've, because they've had to play from behind here in the last few games, that they've had to adjust their offensive game plan, and it's not what they're built for. But again, I think Eli Manning is a very good quarterback in this league, but it's also built around the system that they have. I don't see where he's got elite receivers up there. Peyton had some of those. Drew Brees has some of those. Aaron Rodgers has some of those. But they're asking Peyton, or gosh dang, I said it again, Eli Manning, they're asking him to go out there and put the team on his shoulders, but that's not what the team is built around. So, having said that, I don't know whether I answered your question or not, but that's just, the team is built one way, and look, there's no doubt in my mind, if Eli Manning had 4 elite receivers, and I'm just going to use the Saints for an example, with a Marcus Colston, a Lance Moore, a Devery Henderson, a Robert Meacham, a Jimmy Graham, backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. They had all that. I mean, I dare say that he would probably go out there and throw for a bunch of numbers, but they just don't have that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying right there. They do have Akeem Nicks, who's been solid. Victor Cruz has stepped up. But other than that, there's not really a whole lot there with the New York Giants. But I'll give you my X factor for this game. I really like Jimmy Graham this week going up against that Giants secondary and weak linebacking core. What's your X factor for this game?
Well, in the first place, let me say this. Jimmy Graham's not an X factor anymore. People know that he's there. He's on the field. And you know what? I give a lot of credit to the Falcons and the Buccaneers and even the Rams and I'm not saying taking him out of the game. He put up some pretty decent numbers, but they found that they said, you know what? This guy's not a fluke anymore. He is for real.
He's a stud.
For me, the X factor in this game, if you're a Giants fan, you go back to what we do best: run the football and do the play action. And if you look back on the history of this Saints-Giants games, when the Saints have been able to dominate, they have been able to run the football, and they've got all of their tailbacks healthy right now. Mark Ingram, Chris Ivory, Pierre Thomas, and Darren Sproles. And I'd come out there and I'd rush the ball 50 times against the Giants. So I'd say the X factor for both clubs, get out there and run it.
Hokie, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Have a great Thanksgiving.
All right. Thank you so much, Zach.